I wanted to start by introducing you to our new Dean of the Graduate College, Dr. Andrew Bean. Dr. Bean came to us from Texas, and I thought maybe we'd start out a little bit by, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and my father is Dutch and my mother is from the United States. They're both deceased, but that's where they were from. We moved around Europe a lot. We moved to Dublin and London and Belgium, and then to the east coast of the United States, and sort of all up and down the east coast, and then the west coast, both north and south. And 2 years in Chicago some time ago, but that didn't prepare me for the winter weather. What did prepare me for the winter weather was I went to college in Ohio, and then I went to graduate school in Connecticut. After graduate school, I went to Sweden and spent a few years there. So I'm familiar with winter, cold and dark. And then I came back to the United States and went to California again, Northern California, and then to Houston, and now to Chicago. My daughter had to do a project for school at one point when she was in high school, and she calculated I'd moved 28 times up to this point. So yeah, that's me.
So welcome to Chicago. I'm sure this will be your last move.
Of course.
That's certainly what we expect. Yeah, good. Tell me a little bit about what your science training was. What was the fields that you were in?
So I was actually a music major when I started in college. I was a jazz musician and I was a composition major in school. And as typically happens with these kind of things, there was this girl. And she was taking this class where you trained a rat to pull on a string to turn on a light. When the light went on, it could press a lever and get a pellet of food. And the rat wanted food, so it did this whole thing. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Never had done science before, thought this was great. So I thought, I've got to take this class because I want to train a rat. So I took a few prerequisites in between music classes, and then I took this class, and it was like life-changing. It was so cool. The best part was that the final exam was that the teacher took your rat that you had trained and put it in the box and did something funny. It turned the light on already. So the rat had to realize the light was on and then go press the lever. So my rat, Harry, he went and did it. I passed the class. Yay, I was a science crazy forever. So after that, I got a job at a pharmaceutical company and played music at night. And it turned out that music was tough, and the pharmaceutical company was fun, doing experiments. And from there, I went to graduate school, and I went in Connecticut to graduate school, and I studied cell biology, neuroscience, and pharmacology, kind of all in one. And that was really fun, and this was a long time ago. So I was not savvy about, oh, I should probably think about getting a job after I finish graduate school. So I just thought, oh, I'm going to do science because that's a fun thing to do. It's kind of like music. It's a fun thing to do. So after graduate school, my advisor in graduate school had gone to Sweden and done additional training. So I thought, hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to go back to Europe. I'll go to Sweden too. So I went to Sweden and spent 3 years at Karolinska Institute and Ludwig Institute in Stockholm. And then I came back and I thought, oh, well, what should I do after this? Well, maybe I'll go to medical school. Okay, fine. So I went back and I went to Northern California, and I thought, I'm gonna go to medical school. I got into this medical school there, and I started taking classes, and I thought, definitely not for me. This is boring. So at the same time as I was doing medical school, I worked in a lab. And I thought the lab stuff was going great. This was really fun. In medical school, not so fun. So I stayed in the lab, and I kept working. And it turned out that I got a big paper on the same issue of Nature as Dolly. I don't know if you remember Dolly. Dolly was a sheep, and it was a transgenic sheep. And so that was really fun. Nobody looked at my paper, they looked at Dolly, and that was cool. So after that, I thought about what I wanted to do, and I applied for jobs, and I went to Houston, Texas, the largest medical center in the world, and I worked at MD Anderson Cancer Center and UT Health Medical School. And my research is a combination of neuroscience and cancer biology. So I had been trained in graduate school in kind of neuroscience and cell biology, and trained in Sweden in cancer biology, and I kind of mixed the two and did neuroscience and cancer biology. And what we work on is something very, very fundamental that all cells do, and that way I can work on many different kinds of diseases, but really from a perspective of a very fundamental kind of science.
So you've talked a bit about in the past that your route to today has been somewhat meandering, if nothing else. And yet, we have this fantasy that the students who get PhDs in particular are all going to somehow or another follow some kind of maybe straighter route to being you. But that isn't entirely true, is it?
It's definitely not true. So PhDs these days, the majority of people who get PhDs in life sciences, that means 85% is the latest number, do not do what I do. They don't have a lab at an R1 institution, at a research institution. The 85% do other things. So I'm the alternative career. The majority careers are things like patent lawyers, consultants in industry. Some people work in industry, industrial science, biotech, life sciences, but are an array of careers. And so one of the things that we need to think about in our graduate school, and what we built where I was before, was career development for our students. So we're in the process of building a small group to help students with career development and also industrial outreach. So that our students in the graduate college are a little bit different than students in the medical college and nursing and College of Health Sciences, in that we teach students really how to critically and analytically think. So they're problem solvers when they come out of graduate school. And they can apply that kind of thinking to a lot of different careers, an array of careers. And so we're moving towards helping those students think about how to use that skill to apply to different careers.
When you were in Texas, you had, as an associate dean, a lot of experience with diversity and inclusion issues. Tell us a little bit about what you did and what you see at Rush in the future.
Sure. So we started in our graduate school, so I had a few responsibilities in our graduate school. One was recruiting students and faculty, admissions, diversity, career development, and they all kind of meshed together. Diversity was a big part of our issue when I came in. So we had an underrepresented minority class of about 13%, which for graduate schools isn't so bad, but if you consider what the representation is in society compared to in life sciences, it's not so great. And what we built over the years was that our domestic student population, when I left just recently, was 53% underrepresented minority. So how did we do that? We did it using a combination of approaches. One was changing our recruitment strategies to have targeted recruiting and build long-term relationships with undergraduate institutions, and also provide support structures for students, both social and academic support. And the kinds of things that we did, we actually published a series of papers looking at different approaches to improving underrepresented minority student population, and then going up through the ranks. So taking the student population and looking at that, looking at additional trainees, postdoctoral fellows, and then faculty. And we were lucky enough that someone who worked with me in Texas, we recruited here. And Dr. Miranda Wilson-Pham is the associate dean in the graduate school here. And she's going to be helping not only with academic affairs, which is her kind of her main focus, but also with diversity initiatives.
So I think that that dovetails with other activities that we're doing within the university. One of the things that you've been hearing about, which was driven by our strategic plan, was the development of some centralization of the D&I activities within the university. That's been a big focus that we've had. You've heard about it at other town halls that we've held over the past year or so. There's a group that's been working for the past few months on developing a really a story, a case statement for how we would execute on having diversity and inclusion as a centralized activity within the university. They are set to make recommendations for us, and those recommendations are very likely to support both the creation of an office where all D&I activities within the university would emanate from or be coordinated by, and also leadership for that office, which is something that many people have talked about us needing within the university. That would then dovetail with other activities that are being done within the entire Rush system and the medical center itself. But the idea is that the university has specific and special needs within the areas of diversity and inclusion, which requires experts like Dr. Bean, like Miranda Wilson Pham, who come to us as people who, like many of the leaders that we already have within the institution, experience in coordinating these activities. And when I talk about D&I, I'm talking about not just recruitment of students and faculty and staff, but also the way in which we integrate issues of inclusion into the curricula that we teach our students and the curricula that we teach our faculty during faculty development activities. So it really creates a platform for us to succeed in this area, and it's an area that has had a strategic focus. Everybody has agreed that this is something that is good for our university. So it's one of the reasons why I'm very glad to have you here. Now let me switch gears to one other thing, because many faculty members, particularly faculty members in the graduate college, have talked about for some time and thought about what it would look like if faculty members had primary appointments in the graduate college. Tell me a little bit about what you're thinking along those lines.
So the graduate college is the only one of the 4 colleges that doesn't have primary faculty. So the faculty in the graduate college are appointed in the other 3 schools and then work for the graduate college for part of their effort. But you know, one of the reasons we're here, and probably the only reason we're here in an academic institution as faculty, is to train people coming up. And we have to take that very seriously. And I think without accountability and some semblance of control by the school, it's very difficult to put programs in place that will help our students in a kind of a comprehensive way. So what we're thinking about is bringing in faculty members, and either bringing them in de novo, bringing in new faculty members, or perhaps enticing faculty members from the other schools to come to the graduate college and have their primary appointments there. And we're going to have to talk. It's going to be a process. This is not going to happen overnight. So it's complicated. But the bottom line is, I think we need a faculty in the graduate college because it's going to provide better training for our students. It's going to ensure that the graduate college is has a sustainable business model, and allow us to move forward in a comprehensive way going forward.
Does anybody have questions for Dean Bean? That was the people in the provost's office love that, Dean Bean.
I've heard it many times.
Questions? Got Polly?
Yes, I have to ask you.
Okay.
One of your colleagues won the Nobel.
Yes, Alison. Yeah, so Jim Allison won the Nobel Prize recently. He was a colleague from MD Anderson in immunology. He won it for immunotherapy, right? Checkpoint inhibitors. And it was pretty clear as soon as he was hired. I mean, he did a lot of the initial work at Berkeley, and he was hired at MD Anderson about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And really he came, again, this is a story about a girl. He came because Pam Sharma, who is now his wife, was at MD Anderson. And she's a clinician who does oncology. And they had worked together in the past on using checkpoint inhibitors in clinical patient populations. And they became fast friends and more than that. And she was help for MD Anderson in recruiting Jim. Jim is also from Texas. He's from a small town in Texas. His dad was a small town doc. And the one thing about him is he makes a big point of being a basic science researcher, and that is a good thing to do. And a lot of people growing up know what a physician does, or a dentist, or a lawyer, but not a lot of people growing up know what a researcher does. And one of the things that he's championing as he goes around and gives talks, and he will for the next year or two as a Nobel laureate, is the beauty of being a basic science researcher and what you can learn and what you can find out and what you can discover as in this unique profession. People knew right from the very start, and this was a huge deal, right? It's a huge deal. There are cure rates, so 5-year event-free survival rates for melanoma, malignant melanoma, that were unheard of before. His story is really interesting, though. He started down this road, and nobody believed him. The scientific community did not believe that what he was trying to do would work. But he persisted, and for about a decade, nobody believed him. But in the face of that, this basic science researcher, kept going. And that is a great story for students and other trainees going forward. Persistence in this area, in the face of reduced NIH funding, in the face of, sort of the non-truthiness kind of society, is tough. And here's a guy who went through it, came out the other side, and won a Nobel Prize, and is helping people. So it's incredible.
I hear that he also plays in a band called the Checkpoints.
He does, yeah. He's a harmonica player, so, there are a lot of musician scientists, so yeah, Jim is one.
Yeah, all right, there you go. Yes, Giselle.
Thank you for your introduction. Very interesting, path that you had. You mentioned that training is very important, or actually recruitment of minorities are very important to diversify the population of graduate students. But it's also well known that you have to really start with the students are very young. We're talking about grade school, high school. What would be your strategy to actually start making connections around the Chicago area, which we have, thank goodness, a very diverse population? What is your strategy to utilize that population in building the pipeline for Rush?
Yeah. So we had a similar situation in Houston. So Houston is the most demographically diverse city in the country. So I'm kind of well aware of that situation. And Chicago is also diverse. We started several programs. One was an outreach program that had students involved in going out to elementary and secondary schools and teaching science. We had summer programs where we brought students in, both high school students and from a local HBCU, historically HBCU. And what we did was, in that program, we had the high school students and college students come and do research in the summer. And then during the year, the college students taught the high school students, and our faculty taught the college students. So we had this kind of trickle down through the grade levels. So we had a number of different outreach programs, some of which were funded by industry. So Shell, for example, funded one of our programs. We had private foundations funding the outreach program as well. So I envision that, you know, we're going to get together with development and think about a long, you know, a comprehensive plan about these kind of outreach activities. But we did the same kind of thing in Houston, and I think it's definitely doable here.
Mike.
So it's interesting, you know, hearing about the recruitment side of having diverse students. I'm curious what your insights are about persistence, strategies to foster persistence in completion in students of diverse backgrounds, whether, I know you'll speak more to basic science, but for us from the clinical side as well, what do you think about that challenge?
So we actually tracked our students. So we're from the basic side first, I'll talk about, and then talk about how we had interactions with the diversity office in the medical school. So ours was split up just like it is here. So persistence for us, we tracked time to degree, time to the candidacy exam. We tracked time to milestones, and then we tracked our alumni. And so one of the things we haven't done so well in the graduate college here at Rush is track our students. And we're putting systems in place to be able to do that and to track our alumni as well. And we've found that it's really important to understand our population both at the recruitment stage, as you mentioned, so tracking return on investment for recruitment activities, but also track both in an academic way, time through different milestones, and then the alumni, and understand what they're doing and how successful they are in what they're doing. Two things that we found help a lot, now if we're getting into the persistence stage, social and academic support. So we initiated several groups that were student run, and we supported them in any way we could. And that included career development, it included academic support, and at Rush, actually, we have in place here a number of things that we didn't have back at MD Anderson and UT Health. So you have Learning Center in place. You have IMSD that's already existing, so that has an office with staff who already know how to do a lot of these activities. So you guys are actually ahead of where we were. And I think what we can do is build on what you have and bring in some of the things that we have shown work and help a little bit. But I think you have the bones of what's really great. So, you know, I think those things will help.
So we're going to have Ayat, you'll be the last one, and then we should move on to some of the other things, but go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, Dean. So as a graduate PhD student in graduate college, I'm interested in hearing about some of the tactics you hope to implement with regards to career development, just so PhD students are aware that are there careers that they can use their PhD towards besides simply working in the lab?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, so I'm actively recruiting a person that actually a targeted recruitment, because I've worked with him before. I know what he can do. He has a huge network. He put on last year 70 career development events in 1 year for our students. And these included bringing in alumni, bringing in leaders in career development fields in life sciences, from all different careers. And I think that, along with the other part of the job, industry outreach. So we have in the Midwest, in Chicago area, Abbott, AbbVie, and others, but if we stretch a little bit further than just Chicago, there are a number of different biotech, pharmaceutical companies, consulting firms, patent law firms, things like that, that we can reach out to. And I know there's an Office of Industry Outreach in the medical school, but I think that we can work together with the other offices here and also at surrounding institutions, surrounding academic institutions, to help our students in a number of different ways. So yes.
Thank you.
So once again, I want to thank you for making this 29th move, last move, both because of the leadership that you bring to this college and the way we can take this college to the next level, but also the leadership you bring to our entire university. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.